Hey guys. Hey everybody. Can you hear me and see me okay? Hair's looking crazy. Somebody give me a yes, thumbs up, anything, just so that I know you can see me, that you're picking up what I'm putting down. Thank you, Guy Jen. Very good. So, a few different things that I wanted to talk about tonight. Uh, One, I wanted to give y'all like first notice. That this is the case always. I want to always give y'all first notice of anything that I'm doing. Just because if there's like limited availability, stuff like that, you guys are the ones who have been supporting me for years on here, still are, and I want to do that just out of appreciation for that fact. So no one knows about this yet, but I'm going to tell y'all first. Lori and I have been talking about doing a class 4 times a year, and we'll do it through Zoom. I believe it's through Zoom. You won't have to come to it or anything, but it'll be 4 times a year, and it will deal with, before I even try to describe it, let me read you the description. This hasn't been put out anywhere yet. This is just the description for the class coming up. Give me 1 second. I'm looking for it now. 1 second. Here we go. So it's titled, or it's named after a hexagram from the I Ching. If you're familiar with the I Ching at all, honestly, a lot of y'all that are on Magnum Opus, y'all know who Derek is, who leads the groups with me. One of the things we've been talking about when we were covering the topic of divination, like tarot and runes, or whatever form of divination you want to use. One of the things we were talking about is how, to be completely honest, the only system that either of us have really felt comfortable with or felt like we got something out of was the I Ching. And the I Ching, it's this system where you can throw coins or toss sticks or, whatever it is, and you come up with 2 different hexagrams that each represent something different, and then one goes over the other, and it gives you a description of what this means. The reason I'm bringing this up is because we are naming this class. The 4 classes will be around the equinoxes and solstices, and it will be Lori and I both doing them. They won't be terribly long. It's not going to be like a 2-day, seminar or anything. They're going to be between 1 hour and 2 hours each. That's including time for like question and answer. Ganica says the I Ching is more accurate. I think part of the reason for that is because the I Ching isn't entirely predictive in nature. What I mean by that, like when I say predictive, when people use things like the tarot or even astrology, it's almost like they're focusing on, like unveiling something that might happen somewhere down the road, trying to get a glimpse of the future. With the I Ching, it combines like common sense with, it's really hard to describe. I can't even quite articulate it, but it's not about as much what's happening in the future as it is like about energy currents, what's going on around us and how we can take advantage of it. Or, sometimes I always show y'all this one right here. It's hard on the computer. I never know. This right here, this is an I Ching hexagram. And this one is called the taming power of the small. So let's say, for example, if you were to toss the coins or toss the sticks and you were to come up with this hexagram, these 2 trigrams to combine, to put them together, 3 lines and 3 lines. First 3 lines, solid. Second 3 lines, 1 broken and 2 solid. If you were to come up with those in a reading, what it would be saying to you is that sometimes you can't make huge moves in a given situation. You know, you may be in a situation where you want things to change radically and drastically, like all at one time. You want some relief of some sort, or you want something to move forward in some way. But sometimes in life, that's just not the way it works. You know, we all have to face times when things just aren't really moving. What this hexagram symbolizes is one of those times when there's nothing you can do to take a big leap forward. All you can do is take little bitty steps that don't seem like they're going to get you any closer, like right now in the immediate future or in the immediate present moment, are not going to make huge strides getting you towards whatever it is you're wanting to accomplish or have, or whatever it is. So this is called wind over heaven, the one down my arm. I have a point for talking about this. Bear with me for 1 minute. The one that you see tattooed on my arm is wind over heaven, and its nickname is the taming power of the small. What that means is that sometimes all you can do in any given situation is make tiny steps forward. Doesn't mean lay down and give up, quit, any of that stuff. It means try to the best of your ability just to keep moving forward and putting one foot in front of the other, even though you can't make any huge drastic changes that are going to bring about what you want to happen. What you can do is keep making tiny strides that lead to some extent, in some degree, bringing you closer to whatever it is you're wanting to achieve. That's what the taming power of the small means. It means like when you're facing huge obstacles, don't focus on the huge obstacle, because there's nothing you can do about that. You can't change the huge obstacle. That's what this hexagram would mean. What it means is that ultimately what will allow you to tame this huge obstacle, to overcome this huge obstacle, is taking tiny steps one at a time, the taming power of the small. Meaning if you just keep taking tiny steps, eventually you will overcome huge obstacles. You know, think about how water wears through rock. A single drip of water, drip, 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 over time, just that one drip of water, which does nothing by itself, accumulates and will drill through rock. That's the same thing that happens when we just keep putting one foot in front of the other. The reason I got that tattooed is because that was prison for me. You know, there was nothing I could do to change my situation or circumstances. All I could do is keep taking one tiny step at a time, which means making it through one day at a time. But you see how that's not predicting anything? Like, you know, you'll see people whenever they're doing tarot readings or rune readings or something, a lot of times they're predicting like, you know, oh, someone's going to come into your life, or this situation is going to happen in the future. You see, that's not what the I Ching is really doing at all. It's almost more like it's not as predictive of future events as it is a source of counseling, a source of giving you little bits of wisdom that help you through whatever it is you're going through, or tell you when times are favorable. You know, and that brings me to why I'm talking about this and what I was going to tell you about it. One of the favorable I Chings, remember the one on my arm, is wind over heaven. One of the most favorable I Chings is fire over heaven, or one of the most favorable hexagrams is fire over heaven. And I want to read you something right now, and I'll talk about this for just a second, but this is a description of the class that Lori and I are going to be doing, and it's going to happen on April 12th. So it's a little bit after the equinox. You know, we've already passed the equinox now, but we're still doing it. What the equinox is, whenever we hit the equinox, it means that we are beginning a new zodiacal cycle. When we hit the equinox, the sun is going into the constellation of Aries, which is the very first sign of the zodiac. It's the sign of rebirth and renewal and rejuvenation. And this is why at the spring equinox, you start seeing flowers come up and start seeing animals come out again, like squirrels and chipmunks. And you see flowers blooming and leaves growing on trees, and the world starts to come alive again. That's because, like, think of the signs, the constellations, almost as like different films, or different, by film I mean like a layer, like something that when you shine light through it is going to change the color or the energetic qualities of the light. The light shining through is the sun. So when the sun is shining through Aries, the earth is being saturated with that energy, the energy of Aries. That's what causes that explosion of life. That's what the filter, thank you, sunshine. That's the word I was trying to come up with, filter. Think of the zodiacal signs as like filters that the light of the sun is coming through. So, it's not, but, people usually focus on, whenever we're talking about these kinds of things, like equinoxes and solstices, people usually focus on the seasons, but the seasons are actually just like byproducts of the energy that, the combined energy of the light and the filter that it's coming through, which in this case is Aries, which is why we have this explosion of life and growth and, everything charging forward. But let me read this to you before I start rambling about crazy stuff again. In the I Ching, fire over heaven represents a time of great auspiciousness. Obstacles disappear because of hidden influences, and we can set off a chain reaction of abundance in all areas of our life if we take initiative. This is also a perfect description of the energies the earth is being bombarded with as we begin a new journey through the wheel of the zodiac, beginning at the spring equinox. In spiritual traditions throughout the world, fire represents divinity. When we light a candle, it represents the divine being present in our temple. Among the elements, earth represents the physical container which receives the descending fire of heaven. And we see this fire made manifest in the way signs of life begin to erupt all around us with the coming of spring. On April 12th, Damien and Lori will be doing an hour-long talk about how to take advantage of these energies and make practical use of them in our lives through meditation and energy work. The talk will culminate in a guided visualization which makes use of the influx of chi the earth is receiving during our present place in the astrological cycle. So that's like a short description of what the class is and sort of what it's going to be centered around. There's nowhere that you can sign up for it yet. Nowhere that, it's available, Azael, not yet. It should be, we're working right now on getting a link put together, and that should happen within the next few days. As soon as it does, y'all will be the very first to see it. I'll post it here first, so that y'all have access to it. But we are hoping that you'll want to join us for that. We're going to talk about these different energies, as well as do like guided visualizations and energy work based on these things, and give you practical ideas and descriptions for how to take advantage of these things, even if you aren't necessarily like a hardcore ceremonial magician, where we can invoke these particular energies, which most people are not. We're going to tell you things that you can do in your life. Even if you don't know how to cast a hexagram ritual, we're going to tell you things that you can do to kind of immerse yourself into and take advantage of these energies anyway. Thank you, Azael. Very good. Thank you, Wild Bill Sherman, Wild Man. Very good. Let me see. What else was I going to tell you about? It seems like there was another thing. I've been writing a little bit about, things I want to cover, and I'm tempted to kind of read y'all some of that just because I'm excited about it, but I'm not going to touch it yet. We'll wait for the class. Instead, we're going to cover, and excuse me also if I seem a little scattered tonight. This is one of those times when I had kind of perfectly thought out what we wanted to talk about and what we were going to cover and all this kind of stuff. And then as soon as I tried to log in here, I've had some kind of what do you call it? Like a hack or a data breach, they called it, something like that. So I've had to go through and change passwords on like 30 different things. Like I could not get into Patreon, could not get into YouTube, could not do anything. So that's even why we started late tonight, is because I've been, trying to deal with all that stuff. And I am still not the most technologically savvy person that you're going to come across. So it kind of threw me off my game a little bit. But the reason that I called this live stream what I did, which is how badly do you want it? We were talking about, this kind of came about because of a comment that someone on one of the live streams made recently, where we were talking about how anyone who wants to reach the highest levels of this work is going to some extent, have to separate themselves from mainstream society, or, the kind of life that people normally live in this world, where they're constantly going out and mingling with other people and doing things. How there will come a time, if you want to reach the higher levels of this work, you're going to have to pull away from that. We were talking about things like the sacred book of Abramelin the Mage, which is what people are talking about most of the time when they talk about the HGA ritual. And if you go by, that book, it's going to take you about 18 months. 18 months if you go, all the way through it exactly like it's described. And one of the things that you notice is when you first start out, the first part of the 18 months, the beginning, you still interact with society, but there are guidelines for how you conduct yourself. For example, you don't lie, you don't cheat people, you don't steal, you don't try to take advantage of people in any way. All of this is tied into like virtue. Like you want to the absolute best of your ability embody virtuous behavior. So you can still interact with society, but you do it in as clean and pure a way as you possibly can. By the time you get to the end of that 18 months, you're going to reach a point where you have to completely and absolutely pull away. If y'all seen that movie, what was it called? A Dark Song. If you've seen that movie, they don't get me wrong, that movie is not an accurate representation of the HGA ritual at all, but it does do a good job of portraying the intensity that's required for some of this stuff. And there is a part in the movie where they have to seal themselves off in this house away from the world and focus on nothing but completing this work, attaining the knowledge and conversation of the HGA. But when we were talking about that, someone said, someone was talking about like having to raise kids, or having to go to a job where you have to deal with people all the time. Like let's say, for example, just for the sake of an illustration, let's say you're the clerk at a 7-Eleven and you have to come in contact with people all day long, and you have to talk with people all day long and interact with them. And there's a constant energy exchange, because ultimately that's what we're trying to do, is we are trying to separate ourselves, not from people so much as it is energy. We are trying to purify and refine our energy, and we're trying to withdraw enough so that we're not taking on constant impurities. And you work a job where you have to do that all the time. Or, you've got kids you're raising and you have to go to PTA meetings or whatever it is they do in schools. I don't even know. I never really went to school that much. And even when I did, I was only like partially even paying attention to it, didn't care what was going on there or anything else. So I don't know what goes on there. But whatever it is people do there, that requires them to interact with other people. But the point that this person was asking or getting to, they were saying, and they said it kind of like in a disheartened way. They said, oh, so then there's no hope for the rest of us. There's no hope for those of us who live in society and want to, achieve some of these things or experience some of these things. And what I said was, that depends on how bad you want it. That was my feedback to this person. I said, it depends entirely on how badly you want it. If you want it badly enough, you will find a way to do it. And if you don't want it badly enough, then even if situations and circumstances are very conducive to you being able to do it, you're still not going to do it because you don't want it badly enough. It all comes down to how much do you want it. And this is true of everything. Like that phrase, that saying, like I had that just drilled into my head over and over and over by my boxing coach when I was in New Orleans. I don't know if y'all remember or not, but I started boxing at one point, and that's what this coach used to tell me all the time. I would get to a point where I thought I was going to black out. When you reach a point in your training where you think you can't take another step, you're gasping for breath. You're supposed to keep your hands up in front of your face at all times to block at all times. You never let your hands drop, but you reach a point where your arms feel like they weigh a ton, where it takes everything you've got just trying to keep your hands up. And he says, once again, it comes down to how bad do you want it. If you want it bad enough, even when you think you can't, you're going to keep holding your hands up because you want to win. It comes down to how badly do you want to win. Same way with magic. There is nothing that anyone has ever done in this world that you can't do also if you want it badly enough. If you want it badly enough, you'll figure out a way. Let me see what y'all are talking about before I start reading this. I've never heard, and Leela says, I've heard that using the golden flower meditation will do it, but it takes you at least 100 days of this isolation and 4-hour days of meditation. I have never heard of the golden flower meditation. I am not sure what that is, but it sounds interesting. Yeah, Will says, is there any other way to invoke the HGA without the sacred book of Abramelin the Mage? Absolutely, there is. And that was kind of what I was trying to show people in Angels and Archangels. Like if you do the Celestial Lotus and the extended Celestial Lotus where you're invoking, not just the Tree of Life and the Elemental and the 12 Zodiacal angels, but also the 36 deacons and the 72 angels of the Shem operation and all that, that will do it. It's going to take you time. Like when I was doing that, it would take me about 3.5 hours to go through the whole ritual one time. And I was doing it 3 times a day. So once again, there's a great deal of intensity, and that intensity, that alone forces you to withdraw from the world, because if you're spending that much time doing ritual work, you don't have time to be out at concerts. You don't have time to be hanging out at bars or going out with, friends or whatever it is. It's like you're going to be single-pointedly focused on the work. So yes, there are a lot of ways to do it other than the sacred book of Abramelin the Mage. For those of y'all who were at the retreat in October, Tommy and Katerina actually have a version, like a ritual. I'm not sure exactly how to phrase this, but they have a version of the ritual that belonged to a member of Swedish royalty, which they are in the process of translating and will hopefully make available to the public the way they did their alchemy book. But it is a method of attaining knowledge and conversation of the Holy Guardian Angel that is not the Book of Abramelin the Mage. There are a lot of ways of doing it. There are ways in Buddhism of doing it, especially Tibetan Buddhism. Tibetan Buddhism is like the peak of this. Let me see, hold on. So Wild Bill Sherman says he's been memorizing all of the names of the 76 deacons and the 72 angels of the Shem operation while doing truck driving. Now, if you are dedicating that much time and effort to this, that is commendable, incredibly commendable, but to be honest, it's not necessary. I never did that. I think it's good. It's good that you're doing that because it's going to, once again, like train you to be single-mindedly focused on that. And it's going to be helpful, even if you just repeat those names over and over and over in your head like a mantra. You can just create a mantra out of all those angel names. And that's going to do wonders in getting you closer to experiencing it. However, like when I was doing the rituals, I never memorized all of them. Like I held a book. I had my book where I'd written the names and color correspondence and everything in my hand. And I would stand there with my eyes closed and I would look at one of the names, see the color correspondence, all that, visualize, vibrate the angel name, all of that, and then move on to the next one, open my eyes again and see what it was. Like I had a cheat sheet the whole time I was doing it. So you don't even have to, memorize that. But if you're doing it, it's only going to help you. That's true. Wild Bill says it's not hard to withdraw from society. You get so into it, you just don't want to be in society. Yeah. You know what? You've got a point there. It's kind of like you're not shunning society. It's not like you're like, oh, this is another way of looking at it. It's not like you're looking at it like society is so impure that you don't want to be around them because they're dirty and you're trying to develop this cleanliness about yourself. Don't look at it like that. Part of it is just that when you are 100% wholeheartedly delving into something that you love doing and that you're learning and growing from, that's changing you, you start to lose interest in society. You start to lose interest in all those things. This is one of the things we're talking about right now in Magnum Opus when we're talking about doing the fire work. Like right now, people are working on the element of fire. And I was talking about how, and I'm going to shut up and read from this in just a minute. This ties into how badly do you want it. I will get back to that. But what was I talking about? My mind just went blank. Let me see. One second. Oh, well, it was Wild Bill's comment about you just get so into it that you don't want to be in society. Part of it for me, when I was deeply, deeply into doing this work, it was that I stopped even thinking about society. In the same way that whenever I got out of prison, I stopped thinking about getting out of prison. It was when I released any idea, any lust for results of ever getting out of prison, I stopped even thinking about getting out. I stopped thinking about the fact that I was even in prison. All I was focused on wholeheartedly was magic and doing these rituals. I wasn't thinking about the fact that I was in prison or that I wanted out or anything else. And that was when I got out. Same way, you don't have to think about, like abstaining from society or not taking part in human involvement or any of that. If you just focus on doing this work and you find an aspect of it, you find a kind of it that you love doing, you are going to automatically lose interest in those things. And what we're talking about, the reason I brought up Magnum Opus is because one of the things I was describing to to people in magnum opus is how, like, when you're doing work with the other elements, you notice changes in yourself. Like, say, for example, when you start invoking earth every day, consistently every day, you're going to, if someone's doing that, you're going to start to see changes in that person. For one thing, one of the things it does is it brings you to a state of greater maturity in whatever aspect of your life corresponds to that element. So say, for example, like when we're talking about earth, if someone is consistently invoking earth every day, they're going to, what I mean by they're going to reach a state of greater maturity in the level of their life or self that corresponds to that energy, is eventually, it may not happen all at one time. It may be a slow process depending on a lot of factors, but the person is eventually going to start coming to the conclusion that they need to take better care of their physical vessel. This stuff is all tied together. You are never going to be a, adept at doing this stuff if you don't also take care of your body, the temple of God. If we are God, if we are the divine consciousness within all things, then this body is what houses it. You cannot defile the temple and, as within, so without, as above, so below. You cannot defile the temple without, to some extent, also defiling what is within it. So what that means is whenever the person's invoking earth every day, maybe they come to the realization or the conclusion, maybe I shouldn't be eating McDonald's all the time. Maybe I need to be focusing on having a little healthier diet. Or I'm spending a lot of time sitting in this chair in front of the computer. Maybe I need to start working out, strengthening myself a little bit in some way. And that was one of the reasons that we told people, like whenever they were doing the earth work, take up some practice that's going to strengthen your body, whether it's yoga, swimming, a martial art, whatever it is. Take up something that's going to strengthen, improve, and refine your physical being to some point. People also come to the realization or conclusion that, you're not going to get very far in this work if you're smoking 2 packs of cigarettes a day. People start to realize, I'm killing myself. I'm defiling the temple. I've got to stop this. I've got to, approach my physical life with a greater degree of love and respect for myself, and treat myself in a way that's going to allow me to get further along in life and on the path of this work. And then you're going to experience like changes of the same sort when you're invoking water and air and all that, only in different levels. Like with water, it's going to be emotional changes. With air, it's going to be intellectual changes. With fire, what I was talking about with the guys in Magnum Opus is that from my personal experience, it's not necessarily so much change as it is you start to chop things off. And what I mean by chopping things off is, like what fire represents is our actual life force. And you can't see your life force. But what you can see are the avenues through which we express this life force, through our creativity, through our ambition, through our sex drive, all of those different things. So, those are channels that our life force flows through. Well, what happens when you're working with fire and you come to a greater maturity in understanding and the way you behave about these sorts of things is you start to realize all the avenues of your life that you are hemorrhaging this life energy, and you start to prune them away so that you're not wasting your life force in pointless endeavors, and it frees you up to have more to channel into doing your will, into more growth and development and all of that sort of stuff. One example, the example I gave was how Maybe you start to think, you know what, I go out with these same guys every weekend and we go to this bar and we hang out and we drink and we're not talking about anything or doing anything that's productive or constructive in any way whatsoever. And I just don't feel like doing it anymore. I would rather take the time that I spend doing that and dedicate it to improving myself in some way or to getting further along my spiritual path in some way. Whatever it is, it's going to be a little bit different for each person, but what will be the same is that they will stop wasting so much of their life force. Maybe they don't play video games so much. Maybe they don't, I don't even know what people do, to be honest, but whatever it is, they'll start to look at their lives and find things that do not produce fruit, and they will trim them off. That ties very much into what I was calling this live stream about how badly do you want it. That's the same thing we have to do. We have to make the conscious choice to do if there is something in this world that we really want to achieve. I could give you so many examples in my own life, but I'm not going to. I'm not going to go deeply into that. But what it comes down to is you find something that is productive and constructive that you want more than you want to continue wasting your life energy, and you channel it into making progress that way over just hemorrhaging. Hope that makes sense in some way. Let me see what y'all are talking about. One second, just reading y'all's. Yeah, and Leela says the Damon Brand books seem somewhat cheesy, but I have had great success from them. People talk crap about those books, not just the Damon Brand books, but the whole gallery of magic books. I've even heard some people say that those aren't real people, that those are AI generated books. May be completely true. The book that I want to read to you from tonight, I've heard the same thing about this book. Doesn't mean that there's nothing useful in it. There absolutely is. And I'll get to that in just a second. No, is it Jose Raziel or Josie Raziel? Don't mean to mispronounce it, whichever one it is. But Jose or Josie says, on the magnum opus, do you do the elemental work with the Enochian names on the pentagram? The only Enochian names, the only time we use Enochian at all is whenever you're doing the supreme pentagram rituals, and they do then. Wow, Ganica said when he was doing the earth grade work, he lost 50 pounds. That is crazy. Wow. That is amazing. That's like a third of a person. That's a good point too. Angela Mahler says, I cleaned up the physical just before I started this. That's another thing you might find yourself doing is cleaning your house. When you're doing the earthwork, you'll stop living like a frat boy and maybe start cleaning the toilets. And, all that stuff is magic. All of it. We can't live in filth and squalor and eat Oreos for breakfast every day and smoke a carton of cigarettes a week and drink beer. We can't do all of that and be proficient magicians. It just doesn't make sense. It doesn't add up. And part of that, I'm not going to go into that very deeply. I realize some people might not know what that means or understand why not, but it has to do with how, like the union between the spirit and the material. But that's more of what I'm going to go into in the Fire Over Heaven class that Lori and I are going to do. That ties into part of what we're going to be talking about there. Just one second. I know it looks like I'm just sitting here staring at you. So Max Power says there are free PDFs of The Secret of the Golden Flower online. Internet Archive has PDF and EPUB. I have never heard of this Secret of the Golden Flower, but I'm going to be honest with you. The more I advanced in this work, the less I'm at a point in my life now where I don't want to read new rituals. I don't want to read books on magic. To me, that I don't get anything out of that stuff anymore. For me, it's more about refining and purifying myself in other ways. I do a lot of sitting meditation now. Wild Bill says saving money too. There you go. That's another aspect of the earth work, starting to save up money. So Max Power says it's an old Chinese text talking about the golden flower. But for me now, it's more about other things, other ways. But let me read this book to you. Like I was just saying about the Gallery of Magic books and how some people, I don't know if this is true or not, don't care. Maybe you can do some research if it's something that interests you. I've heard people say that they're not really even living authors, that they're just AI generated, that they're books generated by AI. And that we should be, outraged as authors, because eventually what happens is they'll take over the literary world. Maybe, who knows? But anyway, I heard someone say the same thing about this book, which is called The Art of Laziness by Library Mindset. Now, once again, this book, I've read little bits of this to y'all before, not the part that we're going to read tonight, but, I've told you this book is not like ingeniously written. This book is not going to be a literary classic. Don't go into it thinking it's going to be an amazing read as far as, contributions to literature, because it's not. However, Ganica says AI just pulls from the corpus that is human data. Exactly. However, there is some really useful stuff in this book, and this ties into how bad do you want it. So I'm going to read this to you. Hold on. So it starts off with a quote by someone named Vizzy Andrew, which I've never heard of. Even Michelangelo would have trouble getting out of bed if he had nothing but a day of spreadsheets ahead. It's hard to imagine Leonardo da Vinci working for a corporation or being a government bureaucrat. You should ask yourself whether you're working on the right thing. There is no point in doing things that shouldn't be done at all. You will always be lazy if you don't love what you do. These are signs by your body that you should try to change your work. Do something meaningful. Wait a minute, is this the part I wanted to read? Hold on one second. I don't think this is the part I wanted to read to you. Oh, it's not. Here we go. That's another part I do want to read to you eventually. But the part I want to read to you tonight is called 100% Responsibility, which is why I called this How Bad Do You Want It? Because it's the same thing. And he started this one with a quote too by Winston Churchill. It says, "The price of greatness is responsibility." And the chapter says, "It's useless to blame someone else for all your problems. You can blame your friends, family, spouse, or anyone else. The good thing about blaming others is that it makes us feel good from the inside by convincing our minds that we can't do anything in this situation. But that's wrong. There's always something that you can do. The taming power of the small may not be a huge thing. Maybe all you can do is take it one day at a time and put one foot in front of the other at a time. But there is always something that you can do. Always. Think of it also as like the 8 of swords in tarot. The 8 of swords shows this woman that is like she's got like a binding wrapped around her really loosely, and she's blindfolded and she's surrounded by 8 swords. And it looks like she's trapped. She can't go anywhere. She can't do anything. But one of the things that someone pointed out to me one time is that you see the bindings wrapped around the woman. They're not tied tightly. They're loose enough that if she wanted to, if she worked at it, she could get them off. And then she could reach up and take the blindfold off. The swords stuck in the ground around her are far enough apart that she could squeeze her way out between them. And you even see in the back of the card, there's a castle on a hill. She could make her way up to that castle and get help from there, which, what's the word? It symbolizes the ability that we can do the same thing in our lives. Like, even if we feel like there's nothing we can do, we can ask someone else for help. Doesn't mean they're necessarily going to give it to us, but that's still something we can do. We can ask for help. This is the same thing. Taming power of the small is very much like the 8 of swords in the tarot. And that's what they're describing in this situation, is there's always something you can do. Even if you can't change the situation, you can always do the best possible thing. Blaming others does nothing. It doesn't solve your problem. Let's say you blame your friends, family, job, or anything else for not time to exercise. You can condemn the whole world. All the blame in the world will not help you find time to exercise. If you want to find a solution, you will find it. It's not that a solution doesn't exist. It exists, and you know it deep inside of your heart. Only action can help you achieve your goals, nothing else. No one can help you achieve your goals. Nobody cares if you're lazy or not. Nobody cares if you procrastinate or not. Nobody cares if you exercise or not. Why would they care? It would be best for you if you do things for yourself. You must act. You must find time. Now, what this, whether he or she or whoever it is that's writing this, what it means, it says, it's not that a solution doesn't exist. It exists, and you know it deep inside of your heart. Only action can help you achieve your goals, nothing else. What that means is, even if a person says, I can't do these rituals, I can't do this meditation, I can't spend this time every day doing energy work, that person knows that there is an aspect of their lives, most likely, where they're slacking, where they're wasting time. Maybe the same person who says, I don't have time to do ritual work is, binge watching Netflix every night. Or even if they're only doing it once a week, that's still time. That's still a small step that you could be dedicating and devoting to, improving yourself in some way. Whatever it is in our life that we want, if you want to be more physically fit, there's some time in your life that you have, even if it's only 5 minutes of time. You know how many push-ups you can do in 5 minutes? But most people don't want it that bad. They would rather come up with excuses than do the work. Nobody can do this work for us. Whether we achieve success or whether we fail at getting to the places that we want to get in this life, whether it's in our magical practice, whether it's in our job, whether it's in, some sport that we like doing, like, say, for example, in my case, karate. I know that no one can do this for me. Yeah, Studio Nightshade says do or do not. There is no try. Exactly. Yeah, Judith, that's a really good way of saying it. Judith L. says, also, you can take all kinds of action that is just spinning your wheels. But if you make your actions authentic to your purpose, you will advance and succeed. That's absolutely true too. That is absolutely true. And that's also true of people who spend years and years making plans and getting ready to do something, but never can bring themselves to actually taking the leap to doing it. There is never going to be a day, never, for whatever it is you're wanting, whether it's attaining the knowledge and conversation of the holy guardian angel, whether it's becoming a race car driver, whatever it is, there is never going to come a day when things are absolutely spot on perfect for you to start doing whatever it is. You just have to start doing it anyway, even when things aren't perfect. Yeah, Wild Bill says that means they chose not to have the time to do it. Yep. Yep. Yeah, Wild Bill says I curl a gallon of water when I'm driving. I used to do that. People do that in prison all the time. They'll fill little garbage cans with water and use them to do curls with. Yeah. Yeah, Azelle says I run faster on the treadmill if I'm watching an action movie. For me, it was music videos. Like when I was working out, like I used to do the elliptical machine or the treadmill or whatever it is. And I would start, I would take my phone and set it on the stand and watch music videos, and it would motivate me to work harder. All right, I'm going to shut up because I've been talking for almost an hour now. I hope y'all feel like you got something out of this. I'm still, coming back to normal life out here. Here's the thing. This is part of what I want to talk about in the Fire Over Heaven class. Also, is about the natural world. One of the things that I've been doing since I've been here is spending time every day immersing myself in the natural world in order to cultivate chi, cultivate the energy of these places to heal myself. And I can tell a huge difference in the way I feel in my energy level from doing that. I forget why I'm bringing this up, but if you want to see like what I'm talking about, just a few minutes ago, I posted a video right before we started. I posted a video on Instagram of where I was at earlier today, but I'm still not completely and absolutely, grounded in my new place yet. So I feel like I'm a little, yeah. And Leela says you're radiating happiness like never before. I'm happier than I have ever been in my entire life right now. Nothing's ever going to be completely and absolutely perfect, but I right now am happier than I have ever been in my life. And I think, who knows what the future brings, things that are going to happen, but I think this is where I want to be for the rest of my life. I do. Next week, thank you, Azale. Next week, I'm still working with my teacher in New Orleans. And next week, I am going to be taking my belt test to see if I progress to the next belt or not. And what I want to do eventually here is start doing some retreats where we combine magic, meditation, and martial arts. Where we work on all of those things, where we work on our energy system, we work on our minds, and we work on our bodies all simultaneously. Okay, I'm going to shut up. Very good. Excellent. I'll talk to you on a couple of days. Thank you, Gannicus. I'll talk to you on a couple of days. And I just wanted to say, as usual, some of y'all have been with me on here for years now. Ever since I've been doing this, you've been sticking with me. And I just wanted to say how much I appreciate that. Thank you, Angela. I don't take for granted the fact that there's a lot of things in the world that you could be spending your time, your energy, your attention, your money. You could be doing a lot of stuff, but you have chosen to spend it here with me. And I don't take that for granted. One thing I also want to ask, one last thing before I go. I would also, I've been writing a lot on my Instagram page. They have these broadcast channel things now, and I started one called Meditation in Motion, and I've been writing a lot about martial arts and like how it's a spiritual practice. It's not just a physical practice. I've been writing about that on here, but one of the things I want to do on here is start introducing y'all to some of that. Like I want to show you how to do some of the forms. And we'll start with like the easiest form. We'll start with, from the very first white belt form and work all the way up. And the first step of the process is learning all the physical moves. And you're going to do it over and over and over 100 times just so that you know all of the moves forward and backwards. And then once you've actually got all of the moves down, that's when you start aligning more of mind, body, and spirit. Because once you've got the actual physical moves down, then you add in the visualization process and the energy work as we go forward and all of that kind of stuff. So that's something else that I'm hoping y'all will be interested in too. And what I'm going to do, you can kind of see in the back, I've already started setting up my space to a very small degree, but I'll push the computer way up here. I'll move back here so that you can see my entire body, and we'll go from there. Okay, guys, I love y'all. I appreciate y'all, and I will talk to you in a couple of days. Take care, guys.